The Indiana Fever just made some big moves this offseason, and Caitlin Clark could not be more excited. After a promising playoff run last year, the team knew they needed experience to take things to the next level. So what did they do? They went out and signed some of the most respected veterans in the game, DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, and Natasha Howard. And according to Clark, this is exactly what the team needed to become a legit contender. But here's the wild part. Bonner and Clark had beef in the playoffs last year. They had a heated moment that had fans talking for days. Now, they're teammates. So how does Clark feel about it? And how will these veterans impact the Fever's future? Let's break it all down. Basically, calling her every name under the sun because she chose to play in Indiana. These are the same people like, oh, she'll never play Indiana for obvious reasons, and she went and defended the Indiana fans and was like, last season, the Fever were good, but they weren't great. Making the playoffs was an accomplishment. But once they got there, it was obvious that the team lacked something crucial: experience. The Fever had plenty of young talent, but when it came to navigating the pressure of the postseason, they simply weren't ready. And Caitlin Clark herself admitted it, saying that one of the biggest issues they faced was not having players who had been there before. That's why the Fever wasted no time bringing in players who have won championships and competed at the highest level. DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, and Natasha Howard aren't just skilled players, they're veterans who know how to win. They've played in finals, they've closed out tough series, and they've been in those intense do-or-die moments. Their presence alone changes the dynamic of this team. Clark knows that young talent can only take a team so far. It's the leadership, composure, and playoff experience that truly make a team dangerous. The Fever aren't just trying to make the playoffs anymore, they're trying to go deep. And with these veterans in the mix, they finally have the pieces to do it. One of the most interesting parts of this offseason move is Caitlin Clark and DeWanna Bonner becoming teammates. If you remember last year's playoffs, these two had a moment. It was intense. Bonner, one of the most competitive players in the league, wasn't holding back against the rookie phenom. They had words, they had physical battles, and there was real energy between them on the court. Fast forward to now, and suddenly, they're on the same team. That's the beauty of the game. One season, you're going at each other, the next, you're working together toward the same goal. When asked about their past interactions, Bonner made it clear that it was nothing personal. It was just two competitors going at it. She even said that after working out with Clark, she's excited to be on her team and to help push her to be even better. Clark had the same reaction. She thrives on competition and she wants teammates who bring that same fire. She knows that Bonner is going to challenge her, and that's exactly what she wants heading into her second season. The fact that they can move past their battles and now work toward a championship together, that's a sign of true professionalism. This is going to be a fascinating dynamic to watch. Bonner brings veteran leadership, and Clark brings that young electric energy. Together, they could be one of the most dangerous duos in the league. The Indiana Fever aren't just hoping to be better next season. They're actively making moves that show they're ready to compete right now. Adding DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, and Natasha Howard wasn't just about improving the roster, it was about sending a message. The Fever aren't satisfied with just making the playoffs. They want more. Clark recognizes this, and she's embracing it. She knows that last season was just the beginning. Now, with a stronger supporting cast around her, she can focus on taking her game to the next level. And the scary part, with veteran leadership guiding her, we haven't even seen peak Caitlin Clark yet. With these additions, the Fever now have a balanced roster, young stars mixed with seasoned champions. That's a dangerous combination. Teams that have both talent and experience are the ones that go far in the postseason. And this year, the Fever have exactly that. Caitlin Clark is already one of the biggest names in the sport, but with veterans like Bonner, Colson, and Howard in her corner, she's about to take the Fever to a whole new level. DeWanna Bonner isn't just a veteran, she's a proven winner. With multiple WNBA championships and over a decade of experience in the league, she knows exactly what it takes to succeed at the highest level. That's something the Fever desperately needed last season, and now they have it. One of the biggest advantages Bonner brings to Indiana is her mental toughness. The playoffs aren't just about skill, they're about handling pressure, staying locked in during clutch moments, and knowing how to control the pace of a game. These are all things that young teams struggle with, and the Fever were no exception last season. When they faced elimination, they didn't have the composure needed to fight back. That's where Bonner comes in. She's been in every high-stakes situation imaginable. Game 7s, must-win road games, championship series. She's been through it all, and now she gets to pass that knowledge down to Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and the rest of this young Fever squad. Caitlin Clark has openly admitted that she's excited to learn from Bonner. She respects players who have been there before. That's why this pairing could be so dangerous. Clark is hungry to improve, and Bonner is the perfect veteran to help her get there. More than just experience, Bonner also brings elite production on both ends of the floor. She's a scoring threat, a defensive presence, and a veteran leader all in one. She's not coming to Indiana just to mentor, she's coming to win. And with her championship mindset rubbing off on the rest of the Fever, this team is about to get a lot tougher. DeWanna Bonner might be the biggest name in this veteran group, but Sydney Colson and Natasha Howard are just as important to the Fever's success this season. Colson is known for being one of the best locker room presences in the league. She brings energy, leadership, and a sense of unity to every team she's on. When you have a young squad like the Fever, having a veteran like Colson who can keep things together is priceless. She knows how to build chemistry, how to uplift her teammates, and how to make sure everyone is on the same page. Natasha Howard, on the other hand, brings something the Fever desperately needed: defensive dominance. Howard is a former WNBA Defensive Player of the Year and has been an anchor on championship-winning teams. Last season, the Fever struggled with stopping elite offenses, especially in key moments. Howard immediately helps fix that. She's a versatile defender who can guard multiple positions, protect the rim, and bring toughness to the Fever's front court. And offensively, she's a strong finisher, a reliable scorer in the paint, and an excellent rebounder. Caitlin Clark knows that while she gets the headlines, defense wins championships. That's why she's so excited about having players like Howard and Colson in the mix. Their leadership, toughness, and experience are going to make the Fever so much harder to beat this season. Caitlin Clark is already one of the most electrifying players in the WNBA, but what happens when you put her in a system with elite veterans who know how to win? That's when she really takes off. One of the biggest criticisms Clark faced last season was that she sometimes tried to do too much on her own. She was carrying a young team, and in high-pressure moments she felt the need to take over. While that's understandable, it's not always the best approach. Now, with veterans like Bonner, Howard, and Colson around her, she won't have to do everything herself. These vets are going to help Clark read the game better, make smarter decisions, and control the pace at an elite level. It's one thing to be a superstar, it's another to be a championship-caliber leader. That's what these veterans will teach her. Clark has already shown that she's open to learning. She soaks up advice, she respects the game, and she's constantly looking to improve. Now, with a real supporting cast, she can focus on refining her skills instead of just trying to carry the team on her back. This season isn't just about the Fever being better. It's about Caitlin Clark taking the next step toward becoming one of the all-time greats. And these veterans, they're going to help her get there. Last season, the Indiana Fever were a team full of young, talented players trying to find their way in the WNBA. They had raw skill, but they lacked the experience needed to turn that potential into consistent success. Now, with the addition of veterans like DeWanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, and Natasha Howard, this team finally has balance. This isn't just Caitlin Clark's team anymore, it's a real contender with multiple layers. The young stars like Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell will continue to develop, but now they'll be surrounded by veterans who can help guide them through the tough moments of the season. Instead of having to figure things out on their own, they'll have championship-caliber players in their ear, giving them advice, keeping them locked in, and making sure they don't let emotions or inexperience cost them games. Bonner, Colson, and Howard aren't just here to put up stats, they're here to teach the next generation how to win. That shift in identity is what could take the Fever from a fun, young team to a serious threat in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA as the face of the Fever and quickly became the biggest name in the league. But leading a professional team as a rookie is not easy, and there were times last season when Clark had to carry too much responsibility, both on and off the court. Now, with veteran leadership in the locker room, Clark doesn't have to be the only voice of the team. She can focus more on her own growth, knowing she has experienced teammates who will help set the tone. This doesn't mean Clark won't be a leader. She's naturally competitive, vocal, and driven, but it does mean she won't have to do everything herself. Instead of feeling pressure to figure things out in tough moments, she can lean on veterans like Bonner, who have been through playoff wars and know exactly what it takes to win at the highest level. That's only going to make Clark better. She can absorb the knowledge, learn from their approach, and refine her leadership style as she continues to grow into a superstar. This shift also means Clark can focus more on dominating the game itself. With better leadership around her, she can focus on improving her decision-making, elevating her teammates, and taking her game to the next level without constantly worrying about being the leader every single night. Last season, the Indiana Fever were competitive, but they were still a team that struggled to close out big games. The talent was there, but they didn't have the toughness or experience to grind out wins against the league's best teams. That changes now. With these offseason moves, the Fever are not going to be an easy matchup anymore. They have a mix of scoring, defense, experience, and leadership that makes them much more dangerous. No longer will they be the young team that other franchises see as an easy win on the schedule. Now, when teams face Indiana, they'll be dealing with a well-balanced roster that knows how to fight. Adding Bonner and Howard in particular gives the Fever a level of toughness they didn't have before. These are veterans who play with intensity, don't back down from anyone, and have experience going head-to-head with the WNBA's elite. That attitude is contagious. It's going to rub off on Clark, Boston, Mitchell, and the rest of the young core, turning them into a team that plays with a championship mindset. No more moral victories, no more being just happy to be in the playoffs. The Fever are officially in win mode. The Indiana Fever aren't just building for this season, they're building for long-term success. When you look at their roster now, it's clear that this team isn't just trying to make a playoff run this year. They're setting themselves up to be a dominant force for years to come. They have Caitlin Clark, the biggest superstar in women's basketball, still developing into her prime. They have Aaliyah Boston, one of the best young bigs in the league, who will only get better. They have Kelsey Mitchell, an elite scorer who can light up defenses. And now, they've added championship veterans who will help speed up the process of turning this team into a title contender. This is exactly how dynasties start. It begins with generational talent like Clark, but talent alone isn't enough. You need leadership, structure, experience, and a winning culture. And that's exactly what the Fever are building right now. If they continue making the right moves and this core develops the way it should, we could be looking at a dominant Fever team for the next decade. The pieces are in place. Now, it's time to see if they can put it all together. One thing is for sure, the WNBA is officially on notice.